What's up, Sneaky Nation? Sneaky P here with my thoughts and my reaction to the Week 1 matchup between the San Francisco 49ers and the Minnesota Vikings. As I do this series where I show my thoughts or tell my thoughts on certain games, I'm going to try to really focus on both teams, but for the 49ers games, I'm definitely going to be more 49ers heavy. I will still talk about the Minnesota Vikings and what I thought about how they played and stuff like that, but the 49ers are definitely going to be my focus. So, looking at this game, coming into it, I expected a 49ers loss, but this was a tough one, man. The way we lost was just tough to handle, dude. Not to say the Vikings didn't earn the victory. They absolutely did. They were clearly the better team throughout the game, but the 49ers had so many opportunities, and they just shot themselves in the foot repeatedly. And if you're going to do that against a good team, you're going to lose, but the way we lost is a tough pill to swallow. Let's jump right into it and talk about Jimmy Garoppolo. If you're looking at stats, really did not play a good game. If you watched the game, you saw that Jimmy Garoppolo played pretty well. I'm not going to say he played good. He didn't play good, but he played pretty well. The stats really don't do how he played any justice at all. 15 to 33, 261 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. But I can tell you, he played a lot better than those numbers look. We'll start off talking about the interceptions and the big one. The one that really changed the entire game around. The pick 6 to Mike Hughes. And that was not Jimmy Garoppolo's fault at all. Kendrick Bourne ran the wrong route. An inexperienced wide receiver. He talked about it post-game, saying he ran the wrong route on the play. Jimmy Garoppolo threw it to where he was supposed to be. And if you have a miscommunication like that, it is going to cost you, especially against a great defense. And it cost the 49ers here. And that game, that one play really changed the game. I mean, there were a few other stuff that definitely played a factor. But the other thing the stats don't show with Jimmy Garoppolo, he had 3 touchdown passes that were dropped. Not 1 touchdown pass. Not 2. 3 dropped touchdown passes. So I'll talk about those briefly because even though I'm calling them a drop, there's some other things that go into it. The first one being the Dante Pettis one. And this was incredible coverage by the Vikings. I'm not trying to take that away from them. This was a very difficult catch for Dante Pettis. But when you get your hands on the ball in the end zone, you have to find a way to come down with it. I know the coverage was outstanding. It truly was. I'm not saying Dante Pettis, killed us. Dante Pettis dealt with drops, bad drops throughout the preseason. This was not a bad drop. This was a good defensive play. But when you're in the end zone and it's a regular season game, you got to find a way to come down with it. Jimmy Garoppolo put the ball in a position where not only did Pettis have a chance to come down with it, I think he probably should have. It's not entirely Pettis' fault. I'm not saying it is because, again, it was a really good defensive play, but Pettis should have been able to come down with that, I think. So that was the first one. The second one, George Kittle, who had a great game. You guys know how high I am on George Kittle. I think he is going to be a phenomenal player in this league. But, man, that ball, he needs to come down with that. There was no defender in between him and the end zone. If he can make that grab, that's a touchdown easy. And he should have made that grab. That was probably the easiest catch of the 3. Not that it was an easy catch. It was still, you know, a go route over the shoulder. But again, if you're in the NFL and we're in the regular season and you have a chance to score a touchdown, you cannot make those kind of drops. It's going to cost you. It cost the 49ers, and they lost the game as a result because of some of these mistakes. The third drop being Pierre Garçon in the end zone. Pierre Garçon has incredible hands. Didn't have many drops at all last season for the 49ers. He actually had a few in today's game, or I say today's game, yesterday's game. But, you know, again, it was a solid defensive play. They kind of hit Garçon in the legs as he got his hands on the ball, and the movement, I guess, just forced him to drop it. But if you are a receiver and you get your hands on the ball in the end zone, you got to come down with it. I'm not saying it's an easy catch. It's not. None of these catches were easy, I would say. The easiest probably would have been the George Kittle one, but that still had a degree of difficulty to it. I'm not saying it's like entirely the receiver's fault. It's a tough catch, man. I get it, but if you are in the end zone or you have a chance to score a touchdown, that's a missed opportunity. That is a huge missed opportunity. and the 49ers had plenty of them throughout the game. On the Dante Pettis one, 49ers continued that drive down the field, and then Alfred Morris fumbled it on the 1-yard line. Again, another missed opportunity there, and it just sucked. It's so painful to watch because the Vikings should have blown us out. I expected us to lose by a lot, but to lose the game in the manner that we did was definitely frustrating. Matt Breida and Alfred Morris, they had okay days. Alfred Morris started off really strong. Matt Breida started off really weak, and then the roles kind of reversed in the second half. Breida started playing a little bit better, and Morris started to struggle more. Overall, 3.6 yards a carry, not what we want. Going to the offensive line, they struggled a lot. The Vikings weren't blitzing a whole lot. And they were still consistently getting pressure on Jimmy Garoppolo. And this is another reason I'm not throwing too much blame Garoppolo's way, because he was under pressure frequently. The other 2 interceptions, the second one was kind of odd. I looked at it, and I don't know if Jimmy Garoppolo overthrew it to, I believe it was Dante Pettis, or it looked like Dante Pettis might have tripped a tiny little bit, and that tiny little bit prevented him from getting the ball to the ball. Just a smidge. It might have just been a bad throw. I only watched it, you know, as they showed it in the game, and every time I watched it, it looked like Dante Pettis tripped a little bit, so I don't know if that's on the receiver or if it was just a bad throw anyway. It definitely was probably a tad too far, but had Dante Pettis not tripped, he probably could have at least gotten his hands on the ball to prevent the interception. So just an unfortunate play there. And then the third interception, I chalk that one up to time going down. You have to go, what, 80, 90 yards down the field in a minute 20 or however long they had. And you're going to try to, you know, make some tough throws. That was a very bad one. I don't know what he saw on that. That was entirely on Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, I don't even know if I saw a 49ers receiver there, but there was like 3 Vikings players that all had a chance to get it from what I could tell. And that was just not a good one. Again, when you're down by 8, minute 20, and you are backed up against your own end zone, the pressure's on. He didn't make the play there. We've seen him do it before against the Titans last year. You know, he's pretty good in the 2-minute drill, or he can be, but he absolutely panicked on that particular throw. So that was on him for sure. The receivers, again, I talked about the drops a little bit, but there were more. It wasn't just the touchdown drops. There were more drops there. And they've got to have better hands, man. I'm not used to seeing Pierre Garçon drop so many. But, you know, the things you got to remember with this 49ers offense right now is their entire game plan had 2 players in it leading up to this week, and that's Jerick McKinnon, who went out earlier in the week, which at that point their game plan was in place. So that, you know, that's a major adjustment. They got to switch kind of late in the game there. So not having McKinnon and not having Marquise Goodwin, who went out early with an injury, that is our best receiver. And you could very much make an argument that McKinnon and and Marquise Goodwin are the 2 best playmakers we have on offense altogether. That takes away a ton of speed. So I think the offense had to adjust a lot to that. And then you got to look at the offensive line. I talked about their struggles a little bit. The left guard or right guard, I forget which one, but went down with an injury. And his replacement came in and went down with an injury right after. So for the majority of the game, the 49ers had to bring in their backup tackle who was injured a lot through preseason, didn't play a lot, didn't practice a lot because of a concussion. They had to bring him in and then move Mike McGlinchey, a rookie tackle who has not played guard at all for the 49ers, over to guard. So for the offense, it was kind of like a perfect storm of disasters. And despite that, they still had a chance. And they just messed up a few too many times to come back from. But I'm not going to hate it on it too much, as frustrating as it is, because last year the Vikings had the #1 defense in the NFL. So to go on the road against the #1 defense from a year ago, missing your top 2 playmakers, and then missing 2 guys on the offensive line to where you're having to play a rookie out of position at a place he hasn't practiced, you know, that's a lot to overcome, and 49ers did their best. Moving on to the defensive side of the ball, so proud of this group, man. They absolutely killed it. The Vikings offense has a ton of weapons. They got Adam Thielen. They got Dalvin Cook. They got Diggs. They got Treadwell, who has a lot of, he had a big drop there. They have Kyle Rudolph. You know, they also have Latavius Murray. They've got weapons galore. And then they got Kirk Cousins throwing the ball. So, for our defense, without Reuben Foster, mind you, and without Malcolm Smith, but that's not as big of a blow, obviously. But our defense without Reuben Foster, to essentially hold them to 2 touchdowns offensively, I'm pretty happy with on the road there. You know, it could have been better at times, but overall, I was definitely thrilled, I will say. Fred Warner is going to be a stud. If you guys did not watch him, he's got to be in that conversation for Defensive Rookie of the Year. I mean, I assume he's going to keep it up. It could just be a one-game sample. Obviously, the defensive rookie for the Vikings, Mike Hughes, might have something to say about that with his pick 6. I get it. But again, that was kind of a blown route there more than anything that he did. Not taking it away from him, but Fred Warner was making plays all over the field, both in run defense as well in pass coverage. I mean, he's an incredible coverage linebacker for a rookie. And he forced a huge fumble that really started to put the momentum in the 49ers' direction prior to Alfred Morris fumbling it back. Things were really starting to look good there for a while. And Fred Warner was a big reason for that. I mean, he played outstanding. And I say this as somebody that remembers watching Patrick Willis's first game, remembers watching Navarro Bowman's first game. So to kind of see him come out and look very good out of the gate, man, him and Reuben Foster could be a dynamic duo for this 49ers linebacking core. I was thrilled with him. DeForest Buckner killed it. Last year, he was absolutely elite at getting pressure on the quarterback. However, he could never capitalize. A lot of this had to do with the fact that we had no edge rush, so the quarterback could roll out and avoid a sack easily that way. But Buckner got his hands on the quarterback quite a few times just to watch the quarterback kind of easily break it. He had 2.5 sacks in this game. Honestly, he had 3 sacks because the 3rd sack, it was all him, where Ronald Blair just kind of helped clean it up. So great game by DeForest Buckner. The whole defense I am pretty proud of. The 2 passing touchdowns that Kirk Cousins had, they were actually, it was solid coverage by Witherspoon and I believe Tart, who got beat on those 2 plays. The one fault both guys had in the secondary, they didn't turn their head around to look for the ball. They were in position to make the play. They've got to turn their head there, and they should be able to break that up in the future. Hopefully they can live and learn from it, and it's something that we won't see happen a whole lot this season. But they were there to make the play. Our run defense was pretty outstanding. Latavius Murray broke off a few nice carries towards the end of the game. But otherwise, Dalvin Cook, you know, only 2.5 yards per handoff. Murray only 3.8, and again, that's off two pretty nice runs he had towards the end, like 9 and 8 yards, I'd say. So overall, our run defense was outstanding. Got to be happy with that. A few other guys I'll talk about. George Kittle, I said it earlier, I think this guy is going to be a star. He is. I know he had that drop. It sucked. But this is going to be, I've said it before, I think he's going to be a top 5 tight end in the NFL. Maybe not this year, but soon, if he can stay healthy. Injuries might be a concern. We'll see how it plays out. But I have very high hopes for him, and he looked very good in week 1. Dante Pettis, I'm not quite as high on because I don't know that I trust his hands yet. He's got a lot of potential, but he dropped a lot of passes throughout the preseason. I heard he dropped a few passes during camp. And although it was more excellent coverage than super his fault on the dropped touchdown in the end zone, still would have liked to see him come down with it. However, he has a knack for getting open, and that touchdown pass that he caught was amazing. That was an elite throw by Jimmy Garoppolo, under pressure, avoiding a sack, rolling out, and then throwing it to where only Dante Pettis could get to it. That play was absolutely beautiful. So I know Pettis has the potential, but I'd like to see his hands get a little bit better there. Other guys on the defense to talk about. Solomon Thomas, not happy with his performance. He was good stopping the run. I say that. I take it back. He only had 1 tackle. I could have sworn he had more than that, but only 1 tackle. Didn't really notice him getting a whole lot of pressure on the quarterback, which that was a pretty big issue for our team overall, I'd say, as well. I know we ended up with 3 sacks, but still, we need to get more pressure on the quarterback on more plays, I think. Kirk Cousins had a lot of time to throw quite a few times there. But Solomon Thomas, man, I've been staying hopeful with him. I can ignore him not being super productive in the game. What drives me absolutely nuts is the 49ers are down by 8. It is on the Vikings' 40-yard line, and it is 4th down and 1. There's like a little less than 3 minutes left in the game. The Vikings send out their punt team. Send out their team to go for it. On 4th and 1 in their own territory with an 8-point lead and the best defense in the NFL backing them up. Everybody in the stadium knew the Vikings were just going to try to draw the 49ers offside. They weren't going to run a play. Even the announcers said it. The announcers called it. They go, they're just going to run out there, you know, send a few guys in motion and just hope that nobody will or somebody will jump off sides. Everybody should have known what was going on. Solomon Thomas jumped off sides, gave the Vikings a fresh set of downs, and while the 49ers ended up getting the stop, the Vikings had to punt the ball away anyway. The 49ers lost 40 seconds on that. 40 seconds is key when you're down by 8, under 3 minutes to go. By the time the 49ers got the ball back, I think it was under 2 minutes to go, and we lost, like, what, 10 yards on it? Because they would have had that 5-yard penalty. They got a few yards on the next drive anyway. And that backed us up more against the end zone. So, let's say hypothetically he doesn't jump off sides there. Which is the dumbest thing because everybody knew what was happening except for him. Let's say hypothetically he doesn't jump off sides. They punt the ball away. We have more time to work with. We have a 2-minute warning to work with. And our play calling's different. Maybe that panic interception Jimmy Garoppolo had that ended the game, maybe that doesn't happen because they're running a different play. And you can say shoulda, woulda, coulda all day long. We still would have had to go the whole field against the #1 defense on the road. It is very, very likely the 49ers would not have won anyway. I understand this, but when you are taking away or when you are lessening your odds to win that game off a penalty that dumb, that is just bizarre to me, man. That is bizarre to me. So, 49ers spent the majority of the game shooting themselves in the foot, but despite all of that, they were going up against a team that was in the NFC Championship game at home with a new quarterback and a healthy Dalvin Cook. So, to only lose by 8 in that scenario, I don't know, man. The 49ers hung around, dude, and I am incredibly impressed by that defense. That defense really played well. If you take away that pick 6, this is a different game. Again, shoulda, woulda, coulda, but I'm proud of what the 49ers were able to do because I expected the Vikings to look a little bit more dominant. And if you look at the stats, it looks like they did dominate throughout the game. But I don't know that that's necessarily the case. They clearly did look like the better team, though. I'm not saying otherwise. But the 49ers played them pretty well, other than those handful of mistakes that I talked about. Looking at the Vikings, Kirk Cousins played pretty good, but in the second half, the Vikings offense really started to struggle. I say the second half, more so the fourth quarter. They really started to struggle. They weren't really moving the ball a lot. They were going 3 and out frequently. They weren't getting a lot of help from the run game there. But yeah, Kirk Cousins with his 2 touchdown passes, they were beautiful throws. They were incredible throws. And like I said, the 49ers, it was excellent coverage. The 49ers guys were there. But Cousins just placed the ball perfectly. Maybe the 49ers guys could have broken it up if they turned their head. We don't know. But they were great throws nonetheless. 244 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions from him. So pretty solid game. Again, fourth quarter didn't look that great. But the running game didn't look very good for the Vikings, I would say. I talked about it earlier. Dalvin Cook, only 2.5 yards a carry. He had 40 yards on 16 carries. His long of 15 yards, if you take that one away, then he had 25 yards on 15 carries, right? And that 15-yard one that he had, that was a fumble forced by the rookie Fred Warner. So, you know, that one ended up being a negative play for the Vikings anyway. So really not a good game by Dalvin Cook in his first game back returning from injury. I'm sure he's going to be fine, though. I'm not saying otherwise. Latavius Murray broke off a few decent runs, I'd say, in the fourth. But overall, 49ers run defense was pretty solid. Kirk Cousins broke free on a few nice carries as well. Receiving, Adam Thielen, 6 catches, 102 yards. Made some very nice plays for them. Dalvin Cook was good out of the backfield with 6 catches and 55 yards. Diggs, 3 catches, 43 yards, a touchdown. Kyle Rudolph, only 1 catch, 11 yards, and a touchdown. And then Treadwell had a big drop. I don't think he would have gotten a first down on that play anyway. But for a guy that's been struggling throughout his career so far, I know they were really hopeful he'd kind of take that next step this season and didn't really. To see that drop early on, it's got to be a little bit discouraging. The defensive line for the Vikings was outstanding. They didn't even have to blitz a whole lot to get pressure on Jimmy Garoppolo. They dominated. The defensive line was amazing for the Vikings through and through, so they killed it, man. Harrison Smith, outstanding game. I mean, killed it the entire matchup as well. Obviously, you expect that from Harry the Hitman. But the Vikings defense played great throughout the game, for sure. I will say Kyle Shanahan schemed a few guys open a few times, but that's just Shanahan being great with play calling. The Vikings pretty much controlled the majority of that game defensively, I'd say. 49ers had those drops, but, you know, Vikings capitalized when they had their opportunities. And that helped them win the game, definitely. So, big shout-out. Vikings defense still looking great, man. Still looking very, very good. The 3 interceptions, Mike Hughes, that one was kind of a gimme based on the poor route running. Harrison Smith and Xavier Rhodes. Harrison Smith had the one at the end of the game. Terrible, terrible throw. Xavier Rhodes had the one where I believe it was Dante Pettis tripping. But he was in excellent cover position regardless. Harrison Smith obviously in the right spot too. So very good game there. Ultimately, it was disappointing as a Niners fan. I expected a loss. The way they lost sucked. But overall, there's some things the 49ers can learn from this. Hopefully, they can clean up their act a little bit for next week. And Vikings, we'll see what that offense can do moving forward. They're going to have a tough matchup next week going up against the Packers, I believe. So that's going to be a very good game. But thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time. Later.